Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Pennsylvania Association for College Admission Counseling Keystone Virtual College Exploration. We're thrilled to welcome you today to our program, a partnership with StriveScan. My name is Liz Frasini. I'm a college counselor at Wyoming Seminary, and I'm also the chair of the College Fairs Committee for PACAC. A few housekeeping tips before we get started today. For the attendees in this session, your mics and cameras are muted for the duration of the program. If you have questions for the panelists, we encourage you to submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and they'll make sure to address your questions throughout the session this afternoon. Additionally, we do have a robust program planned for all Pennsylvania students now through November 6th. So we'd love for you to visit our website and check out additional sessions. And also a recording of this session will be posted to our website after today's live presentation. You can visit our website at www.pacac.org/virtual. And without further ado, I will turn it over to your wonderful presenters for this afternoon.
Okay, we're going to start, and thanks for joining us. This is called Covering the Gap, Pieces of the Puzzle to Help You Pay Your Bill. And so we're going to be talking about several different ways you can address the balances. The presenters today are Linda Pasevich, that's me, Dan Ray, who you see above me, if you have that formatted that way, and Robin Walker is right beneath me here there. Linda and Dan are account executives for FIA, the PA Forward Student Loan Division, and Robin is the FIA Higher Education Access Partner to answer all your questions about FAFSA and what should I do. We are part of Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, and FIA, if you're not familiar, is the agency that assists you with paying and affording and attending post-secondary education. So that's what we're here to help you with. Today, we're going to have an overview of the processes and the products and where to find that assistance for funding that post-secondary cost, understanding the costs and ways to save when you're deciding what I want to spend, and start the process with the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Where's the free money from grants and scholarships, loans available, federal and private, and how credit knowledge can help you with that borrowing section. So if you get that bar and you need to borrow, how does your credit play into that? And we're going to offer you some resources as well. Go ahead. And Dan, I'm going to let you take over.
Very good. Thanks very much. And yeah, so the first slide here is one of my favorites, naturally, net price calculator. One of those things that a great help, a great resource that came out right after all my kids were done with college. Sometimes things work that way. Yeah, so net price calculator, you can really just go to any college's website and go to the search bar, type net price calculator. It's going to be in there somewhere. Most schools receive federal funding, and therefore, if they have federal funding, they have to have a net price calculator. And, you know, one thing I learned a long time ago as a parent of 5 college graduates is that I don't care what the sticker price of a college is. I don't have any concern about that at all. My oldest went to a college with a sticker price of about $68,000 a year. I didn't really care about that. I mean, I did initially, it all fell on the floor, but afterwards, then I realized that, you know, he got more financial aid to go there than anywhere else. And actually turned out that school was cheaper than community college for him. It doesn't work that way for everybody, right? But net price is all I care about. You know, you go to a college, you walk around campus, you think everybody's paying the same price there. Not true. You know, this student over here is paying full boat. Somebody else is paying half. Somebody else is there basically almost for free, right? Net price is all we care about. That's going to show you basically what you have to cover, you know, right? So I don't care if a school costs 70 grand. All I want to know is what's it cost me, right? And so let's take a look here. All right. Yeah, ways to save. Before anybody talks about really any type of borrowing for higher education, which probably about 2/3 to 3/4 of the students do. You know, they have to borrow something. We like to talk about ways to save, and there are a ton of ways to save. In fact, I can save everybody here 30% on their borrowing with 3 tiny words, graduate on time. That is going to save you 30% right there. Why? Because if you don't finish your 4-year degree in 4 years, your 2-year degree in 2 years, you're going to probably end up paying your last little bit of education there with nothing but loans, because a lot of your grants and scholarships are going to run out. Scholarships, everybody, hey, that should be your new hobby. Scholarships, 15 minutes a day, 1 hour every weekend. Make sure you're out there hunting for scholarships. And, you know, a great website for that would be fastweb.com. If you go to another website, edplanner, edplanner.org, you know, it's probably in our resources at the end here. What you'll find there is you'll find a link to a free scholarship search. It'll take you to fastweb.com, where you can hunt for all kinds of scholarships out there. I mean, you need to be doing that. There's other great websites to do that, but scholarship hunting, man, you got to do that early. You got to do it, kind of make that a habit, and you got to keep at it until you graduate, because some scholarships you can only get while you're a current college student. ROTC, I did have a student that did that also in the family, you know, Reserve Officer Training Corps. Great opportunity to go to a civilian college. Now, I chuckle a little bit because I'm a military academy graduate, and so sometimes, you know, there's that little rivalry between ROTC and academy grads. But, you know, one of my kids did ROTC, worked out very well. Commuting, a lot of people can save money by doing that. You know, room and board can be kind of a stiff price at some schools. Commute for maybe just for a couple of years, maybe go to community college for a couple of years. Just make sure that if you're going to start at one school, end at another school, make sure you know what credits are going to transfer and how they're going to transfer. They're going to transfer as electives. They're going to transfer as core courses. Make sure you have that lined up ahead of time. Speaking from personal experience here, you know, the guy with the gray beard has run into just about every pothole that you can run into with higher education. RA, you can be a resident assistant, and kind of, I guess, we used to want to call it dorm mom or whatever back, you know, way back in the day. But yeah, that can save you a ton of money, because room and board a lot of times is equal to or greater than tuition. So room and board, if you can save on that, yeah, do it. Cheaper meal plan. Man, I see so many students who overestimate, I guess, what they're going to use on a meal plan, and so much of it ends up being wasted. So make sure you're being very frugal with that money, and realistic. Textbooks, there's tons of ways to save on textbooks. Just Google that one sometime. You'll get a lot of hits. PA 529, never too late. You know, just because you didn't start saving, you know, when you were in the maternity ward, that does not mean that it's too late, right? You can start this anytime. You can always save yourself, you know, 3.07%. You can always save yourself income tax on this, because any money you put in, you're not going to pay state income tax on, right? So PA529.com. Check that out. Great website. And another option I want to point out here, because direct payment plans, you know, a lot of schools have these, and the fee on these is usually very reasonable. Maybe, you know, $35, $45, $55, something like that. No interest usually. And it just allows you to spread out your payments of your unpaid balance over maybe 4 months, maybe 6 months. Maybe you can spread them out over the whole year. Terrific option there for you. And with that, I am going to pass the baton to your expert here in all things FAFSA related.
Thanks, Dan. I just want to go over where the student needs to file their FAFSA. After October 1st of your senior year, which was just passed, you could start filing your FAFSA. Your FAFSA is your gauge to what kind of aid you're going to receive. And that opened as of October the 1st. You could go to FAFSA.gov. You could go to the Student Aid app and download the app on your phone. And there's also a deadline of May 1st for the state grant. So you want to complete your FAFSA as soon as you can, but make sure you complete it by May 1st so you don't miss out on the FIA state grant. When you're looking at it, you're going to fill out the 2021 FAFSA if you're a senior. You're going to fill it out, and you're going to start as a start here and sign in because you're a new student. So we're going to talk about some free money here. Grants are free money. So your FAFSA will calculate whether you're eligible for some free money. So your grants, you have a Pell Grant that would give you up to $63.45 this year. You have a state grant that would give you up to $45.25. And there's some school-based federal SEOG money that some schools offer up to $4,000. So just think about it. If I was the most needy student and I filled out my FAFSA and I was Pell eligible and state grant eligible, and I got some federal SEOG money and the schools offered me money also, I would have a pretty good chunk of my tuition and fees paid for at that point. So it pays to fill out the FAFSA. There are other grants, federal grants that are out there, the TEACH grant, OVR, there's military. The OVR is occupational vocational rehab. If there were students with disabilities, if you have some type of disability, you would contact them. They do probably an interview with you, and then you would do some testing, and they provide some funding to help pay for college. So if you go to studentaid.gov/types, that will give you the types of other federal funding that's out there. There's also state grant options, and you can find them at FIA.org. I'm going to go over just a couple real quick. The PATH grant is partners that, organizations that partner with FIA for scholarships. The student goes out and applies for those scholarships. If they're granted one of those scholarships, FIA will match it up to $3,000. So if you got $3,000 from them, FIA will match $3,000. I'm going to touch on the Chafee grant. So that Chafee grant is for students fostering out of foster care. And if they fill out the FAFSA and they're state grant eligible, they would fill out the Chafee grant, and they can get up to $5,000 in the Chafee grant. That's the max award. But they also would qualify for the Fostering Independent Education waiver. So the student can actually go to school for free for tuition and fees. They would take out the state grant, the Pell Grant, the Chafee grant, any other institutional aid. The gap that's left between tuition and fees, the schools would provide a waiver for that. So if you go to FIA.org, there's a lot of special programs out there to take a look at. And of course, I'm sure some families have money set aside for their students. It could be a 529, it could be savings accounts. You might have other resources, like the parents decided they're gonna refinance the house at that time or take a home equity out. Those are the other options that you may have. You also wanna search for some other free aid, which is the scholarship. So don't be afraid to look for those small scholarships. Start by writing a very good essay. That essay could be tweaked for each scholarship that you plan on looking for. Look for the small amounts, because every small amount adds up. $250, $500, that's all free money. If you're asked to pay to apply for a scholarship, it's a scam, so you don't want to do that. But I would search for your scholarships, like Dan said earlier, 15 minutes every other day, or a half an hour, or an hour on the weekend. You can apply for a good amount of scholarships. Yes, you're going to get a lot of no's, but if you get some yeses back, that's free money. So don't be afraid to start looking now. You're going to realize what your deadlines are. If it's May 1st as a deadline, then you want to make sure that you apply for that scholarship come May 1st or February 1st, or whatever the dates are for those scholarships, so you don't miss out. Here's some websites. Fastweb.com, you can enter information in there on fastweb.com, and then it'll send you back scholarships that fit the criteria that you put in there. I like Unigo also. Unigo has some unique scholarships in there, but all of these are very good websites to go to search for those scholarships. Just remember to keep track of when they open to apply for them. You could actually copy that link, put it in a Word document, mark on your calendar, February 1st, apply for that scholarship. You just go into your Word document and you hit that link and it'll take you right to it. Therefore, you did a lot of your research ahead of time. So research saves you a lot of money. Thanks, Dan. And there's another option here for work study. A lot of students say, should I apply for work study? I tell every student yes. There's federal work study, there's state work study, and there's jobs near campus that qualify for both of them, actually. What happens is for the state work study, if the school participates in it, you're allowed up to $5,000 between the fall and spring, and you're allowed to make another $5,000 in the summer. So that's always great. And it looks good on a resume. I've been asked for a reference for a student that did work study. So it pays off. That student got a very, very good job, and I was actually their only reference. Thanks, Dan.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about the loans, the student loans that you could get. So what happens is you now know your costs, you've got all your scholarships, your free money, your grants, and I still have a balance. Every student is allowed to take a federal direct Stafford loan once they complete the FAFSA. So just by completing the FAFSA, the student becomes the borrower. There's no credit check, no collateral, and there's two parts to it: subsidized loans and unsubsidized, based on those FAFSA calculations. So your subsidized is when the government's paying the interest on that loan for you, and unsub is when the student is responsible for the interest, but no payments need to be made until the student leaves school or graduates. And there's always a 6-month grace period. So there's 6 months to get a job and go out there and get settled, and then your loans go into repayment. So the first year, a freshman is allowed to borrow up to $5,500, and then $6,500 the second, third, and fourth, you have $7,500. There's several different repayment options once they get into that repayment option, but one of the criteria is you must pass your classes. So please have that conversation, parents, with your students, because if they don't pass their classes, then they will lose the opportunity to take out the federal direct loans, and every student gets it. So you will see that on your financial package once you get it from the school. The interest rates change every year on July 1st, and they're set for the life of that particular loan. There is a origination fee. This year it's 1.062%. Know that that origination fee on any federal loan comes off the disbursement. So when you're looking at what I'm borrowing and what my balance is, make sure you're considering that that fee is part of your gap. And you can apply it to studentaid.gov, or your school will tell you what to do next when they want you to apply. There's also the federal direct plus loans, and that's when the parent is the borrower and they take out the loan in their name. A credit check is required, but it's extremely lenient, and there's no debt to income. And that's where parents can get into trouble, because you're allowed to just borrow because you want to. And sometimes it's really not the best thing to do. So watch, parents, as you go through this. If you are taking a plus loan, make sure you can afford that loan, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Repayment begins 60 days after disbursement, unless as a parent you decide you want to defer the payments, and you can borrow up to the cost of education. Your interest is 5.30 this year, and it's a 4.236% fee. So remember, that fee comes off the disbursement, and that fee amount becomes your part of your gap that you have to plan for. So watch for the federal plus loans. Like I said, they're easy to take. If your student does take, if your parents do take a parent plus loan and are denied, then your student gets to take an additional $4,000 in their name. But I will tell you, it is very difficult to be denied these loans. But just so you know that that's out there for you, and that's part of the process. There's also private student loans. So once your federal loans are on your award letter, and I still owe that balance, there's private student loans that you can take. Most of them are in your student's name, but a parent can take it in theirs. They're non-federal, so it depends on the lender you take it with on what the interest rates will be, if there are any fees. Students normally need cosigners because they don't have enough credit in their name, so your student will need to get a cosigner. And that could be anybody, where a parent plus loan, a federal plus loan, is just for biological, adoptive, or step parents. There is a credit check and usually and always a debt to income on private student loans. Some have fees, some have different interest rates. It definitely is worth your while to compare when you're looking at private loans to see what fits you the best. Don't use the private loan that sends you the most mail. It's nice that you have that information to be able to go out and research it, but you absolutely want to make sure you're checking everything. When it comes to private loans, because we're FIA, Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, we must tell you about the PA Forward Education Loan, and that is through FIA. It's for undergrad and grads. They usually need co-signers, and depending if that person that's being the borrower has enough credit, there is extremely low fixed interest rates, 4.03 to 6.56. And what you want to watch when you're looking for private loans is that get a higher rate loan than 6.56, where many private loans go well above that. There are no fees, so what you take out, borrow, all of it will go to the school against your bill. There's a 0.25% interest rate reduction for direct debit and a 0.5% interest rate reduction for graduation. Multiple repayment options, including deferring while you're in school. Cosigner release, no prepayment penalty, deferment and forbearances. You can actually learn much more about this by going to FIA.org/PA Forward or attending another FIA webinar, and that would be at FIA.org/virtual webinar events, and you'll see many different options for you to help you through this process. Because we listed that interest rate, here's the I agree box that you would check when you're, so just so you know, that's all the fine print. There's also a parent loan from PA Forward from your state, and it is in the parent or guardian's name. We don't challenge someone who says, I am the guardian of the student and would like to help them pay for their education. Again, low, very fixed interest rates. 6.40 is the highest you will get. There is a 0.25% ACH, meaning direct debit. Again, no fees, multiple repayment options, no prepayment penalty. Deferment and forbearances apply to these, to all the PA Forward loans. So should you need it and you need to put something on hold, it won't affect your credit and you can take advantage of that. FIA.org/PA Forward is where you'll find information on that. So when you are looking for private loans, make sure that you're searching and look at your state to see if that might help you. There's now, again, the fine print, and we just want to move past that. That's fine. When you are looking for loans, remember, you want to also remember, how am I going to pay this back? What will it cost me if I take that loan? So it is worth your while that before you anticipate what you're going to borrow to attend school, that you use some of these loan repayment calculators to figure it out. And the one thing that you'll hear from all FIA, whenever FIA is doing a webinar, is make sure your student understands what I'm going to make out of this education before I determine what I would like to borrow. And there's many different sites you can find that out, because if I'm only going to make a salary of $50,000, I should not be $150,000 in debt. And parents, if you don't monitor that, they're moving in with you when they graduate. So they can't afford food and an apartment and things of that nature. So always know, what am I going to have to pay back before I determine what I'm going to take out? And one way to do that is through studentaid.gov, manage your loans. If you have federal loans, it is all reported up to the clearinghouse. And so your student can keep track of that debt as they go through school. And they should always check on that and be sure they understand how much debt they have before they get to the end and say, what? Well, how did that happen, right? So always watch what you're spending, but there are definitely ways to cover that gap. All right, Dan.
All right, I think I unmuted myself there. So that borrowing guideline there that Linda talked about, that's really the rule of thumb. As you are looking at paying for higher education, you know, when FIA talks about wanting everybody to have an affordable higher education, that's really what I have in mind anyway, is for students, don't borrow more to get your education than you plan on making your first year in the workforce. And for parents, don't borrow more to help all of your kids get through school than what you make right now, because what that'll do is it'll keep your monthly payments within 12% of your gross pay. And that means you'll be able to afford other things, right? That's the rule of thumb. If you're looking at a post-secondary school, it looks like you're going to be borrowing above those guidelines. It's really time to look at Plan B. You really don't want to get into that kind of debt. Now, next we're going to be talking here a little bit about credit. And as Linda mentioned earlier, the Federal Plus loan is very hard to be denied for. However, it does happen. There's sometimes people are denied that plus loan, and then the student can borrow more in the unsubsidized Stafford loan program. But remember with that plus loan, parents, okay, so a little heart to heart here again from the old guy, you know, that you got to watch your borrowing with plus, because there is no, like Linda mentioned, there's no debt to income ratio analysis done. There's no real credit scoring done on that. They're just looking to see if you have okay credit. They're looking to see if you've not declared bankruptcy in the last 5 years. You're not currently 90 days or more delinquent on bills totaling $2,085 or more. And I see regularly people who apply for that plus loan just to get denied, only to find they get approved. And then that can create a sticky situation. But when we talk about private education loans, like the PA Forward loan, you're going to see a real credit check involved there. And what happens if I'm denied? You know, why is my credit important? How can I clean my credit up like I had to do once upon a time in my life? Well, first thing we want to look at is a credit score. And the credit score is 3-digit number. I don't know of any of the bureaus using 2 digits or 4 digits on those things. You know, it's a number. Lenders want to know. The thing they want to know is if they lend you money, what are the odds you're going to pay it back? And that number, the higher the number, the less of a risk you are, the more likely they figure you are to pay it back. Some lenders are also now looking at the dynamics of a credit score. Is your credit score rising or is it falling? Okay, maybe I have a credit score of 760 and that's pretty good, but maybe it was 820 a couple of months ago. That means I'm on the downhill, right? And so some lenders are starting to look at that. But that's all they want to know. What's the probability you're going to pay this thing back? And that probability translates into maybe what interest rate you're going to get, what kind of fees that you're going to be charged. This stuff on this slide here come from myfico.com. If you haven't been on that website, highly recommend it. Lots to learn out there, lots of good information. And what is my credit score made up of? What if I have a 760 score? Why do I have that? Well, it's, you know, you see your little chart there on the left-hand side, amounts owed, payment history, new credit, length of credit history, and your mix of credits. You know, do I have all credit cards or do I have a mortgage? Do I have a car loan? Diversification. You know, and that chart, you know, 5 years ago, that probably would have looked a little bit different. Lenders are always adapting and looking at different ways of being more accurate about who is a good risk to lend to. But that's where it stands for right now. And you got a little speedometer down there on the right side of the slide, the FICO guidelines there. And you have poor, fair, good, very good, and excellent. Obviously, the further that you get that needle to go clockwise, you know, the better off you're going to be for interest rates, better off you're going to be for fee structures that are involved there too. I would say, you know, if you're looking at private loans for higher education, if your credit score is much below about 650, you're either going to have trouble getting approved, or maybe if you do get approved, you have a better chance of having a double-digit interest rate and maybe some fees to pay too. That's another thing. I'm gonna harp on this one. You know, I've been complaining about the federal plus loan program for 30 years. I don't want to say complaining. I've been concerned because so many parents overdo on the federal plus, and the reason they can is because none of this credit scoring is done out there. With the federal plus loan and with these private loans, you can borrow up to the entire cost of attendance. In other words, if your student is attending a school that costs $70,000 a year and they don't have any other aid, they don't have any grants, no scholarships, no work study, they don't want to take out a student loan, parents, you can borrow in the plus loan program, you can borrow the entire thing every year, and they're not going to look at your credit score, they're not going to look at your income, they're not going to look at your debt to income ratio. Man, that's trouble. That's a formula for trouble. You're going to have to be a governor on your own engine there and make sure that you're within the borrowing limits. Don't borrow more to help all your kids get through school than what you make right now. If you make $50,000 a year, don't borrow more than 50 grand in plus or in the private loan programs. The reason I bring that up right now is just because as I look at this screen, to me, this is a safety net. Some of this is going to keep you from borrowing something you can't afford. In the private education loan world, the lenders, they're going to look at this kind of stuff. It's not to be overbearing. It's just to make sure that you don't end up in a situation where you have trouble paying things back. How do I improve my credit score? I can tell you one thing that I had to do, and that would be on the right side of this slide. Many years ago, when I used to drive ships for the U.S. military, I used to move around a lot. And somehow or another, at one point in time, I ended up with 2 mortgages on my credit report. Really no way of affording that. I wasn't that high ranking, at that point. So no chance I could afford that. I went to apply for a car loan. Bad interest rate, bad fee structure on that thing. I was thinking, what's the deal with that? Well, I went, and it wasn't that easy back then to get a look at your credit history. Wasn't that easy back, back in 1900 and whatever. And so, but I looked, found 2 mortgages out there. Well, no wonder I was. They thought I was risky, because they thought I had more in mortgages to pay every month than what I had money. Right? So I had to get that removed. So get rid of negative information on your credit report. And we'll show you how to do that here coming up. Definitely reduce your debt balances, paying all your bills on time. I mean, that's number 1 right there. And I talked a little bit earlier about diversifying your credit accounts. Have open, active accounts in good standing. People who pay cash for everything can sometimes have trouble getting credit when they need to get credit, because they don't have a history of credit there, right? One other thing that I found, Experian, I pay a fee every month to Experian just because I like having constant access to this kind of information. And they said to me one time, well, hey, you can increase your credit score by up to 13 points pretty quickly here. And I was like, well, how are they going to do that? They're just going to grant me 13 points or something? Well, no, I looked into it. And what they were able to do is they were able to add my utility bills into my credit history. Things like your phone bill, your trash hauling bill, any other utilities that you have going, and they can be added in too. And that's a good way of building up that history. Right, resources. Let me go over some of these here. FAFSA.gov, actually, that one might be going away. I don't know when, but I've heard rumors of that. It's going away. And everything, the feds have been doing this over time, really consolidating everything out there onto studentaid.gov, halfway down the slide here. So studentaid.gov, that's the one you definitely want to keep in your hip pocket. FAFSA.gov might be going away. That 800-433-3243 number on there, that's 1-800, the number 4, and then FED-AID, F-E-D-A-I-D, if you want to remember it that way, 1-800-4-FED-AID. You can always call there for help. Where I see a lot of people calling that phone number is when they need help, maybe getting their federal student aid ID username and password unlocked or something like that. That's when a lot of people call that number. FIA.org, questions about Pennsylvania State Grant, and then there's the 800 number as well. FIA.org, there's a lot of things to do out there. We haven't had near enough time really to cover every type of financial aid that's available out there. So studentaid.gov, FIA.org, those are going to be places you want to go to learn about all the different types of federal and state aid. Some of them are very specific to very specific populations. Education Planner, I mentioned that one earlier. You can also type edplanner.org and that'll work too. But you can go out there and do a Find My Perfect School search. You can also link over to a free scholarship search out there. So much to do. There's help out there, SAT help, ACT help out there. Lots of fun. We spend a lot of time. I know Robin, Linda, we've all spent a lot of time in the classroom with students working through stuff that's on educationplanner.org. Livecareer.com, great place to go out there. And if you're having trouble putting the words into a resume or a scholarship application, what does it mean? Well, Linda Pasevich could tell a good story about this with her son, who did a lot of community service but he wasn't necessarily active in all the clubs and sports and whatever at school. Well, how do you put that community service stuff onto a resume or a scholarship app and get credit for it, which her son ended up getting, you know, what, $4,000 scholarship out of that, right? Well, Live Career can help you with that language to convert your activities like helping neighbors with their lawn work, convert that into resume language. PA529.com, check it out for sure. It's never too late on that. Studentaid.gov. MySmartBorrowing.org was created specifically around the rule of thumb, don't borrow more to get your education. Then you're going to make your first year in the workforce. You can go there. It'll show, we know the average cost of attendance. We know the average financial aid package at schools. We also know the average starting salaries for a lot of careers. And all of that goes, all that horsepower goes into mysmartborrowing.org. mynextmove.org, tied into Bureau of Labor Statistics. If you're interested, if you want to know, hey, right, if you want to obey the rule of thumb, you got to know how much you can make in a career. If you're going to be a mechanical engineer with a 4-year degree in Pennsylvania, you need to know the starting salary on average in Pennsylvania is $54,000 for that. That's your guideline. You better not borrow more than $54,000 to get into that career in Pennsylvania, or you're going to start to have trouble affording things. My Next Move, you can look up any career. You can see out there what it takes to get into that career. You also want to check out what kind of degree do I need? I've talked to several students over the years. I want to be a clinical psychologist, but I only want to go to college for 4 years. Well, that's just not going to happen. 96% of clinical psychologists have a terminal degree. They have PhD or equivalent, right? So you can find that, My Next Move. collegecost.ed.gov. Wow. Spend some time out there. That'll link you out. That's a deep and wide website there. You'll have fun on that website there. More resources. Federal Trade Commission. If you haven't been out to the FTC site, awesome. Plenty of good information. That's where also you can get your free credit report. Every year you can get a look at all the credit bureaus there. By the way, the credit bureaus have great websites too. TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. If you haven't been on their websites, plenty to do out there. And if you're interested in, to take a look at interest rates, if you want to know what 10-year Treasury note is, which is that's the basis for the federal loan interest rates, 10-year Treasury. If you want to know what prime is, LIBOR, bankrate.com is a great place to go for that. I put NerdWallet out there, and Credit Karma. I like those websites. There's a lot of great financial literacy websites where you can get all kinds of great instruction there. All right, what are we looking at? We're looking at 339 here right now. I want to put our contact information back up here again. Don't hesitate to get a hold of us if you have questions. Those are our phone numbers, our email addresses. They, don't hesitate to that. We love to help people avoid the potholes of paying for a higher education. All right, I think we're ready to wrap, right?
Pretty soon, right. Also, guys, remember, you can always check Robin and her team. They are doing financial aid nights at pretty much every high school virtually, and they are offering FAFSA workshops so that you can always contact Robin and let her, and she'll hook you up with a financial aid night. And Dan and I are always available for questions, especially when it comes to the gap, or if you're looking at the PA Forward student loan. Absolutely. FIA is your state agency that provides information to help you get through it. Feel free to contact us at any time. And if we're not the right people, we will hook you up with the people that can help. So never a problem. And we want to thank PACAC for allowing us to do this workshop. And we probably have a couple more minutes. Should there be any questions, if you want to ask them in the options. Robin, do you have any other final comments you'd like to add, or feel free? FAFSA is the big thing. You're on mute, Robin. Yeah, there we go.
I just want to let everybody know, even if I am doing the financial aid nights and FAFSA virtually, I do have some that are on site, but with the precautions measures that are up for COVID. But I can either help a student on one-on-one, find somebody that could help them, either it's, even through, if it's EOC or one of our other partners, if I'm busy, yourself, Linda, Dan, we're here to help the students. So I want every student to know that they don't have to do it alone. But I think my presentations are pretty good as far as helping the students with the process. But we are here to help whenever they need us.
And we can customize those presentations, right? I mean, you do that. I've seen that happen a lot of times. Somebody maybe wants a 15-minute presentation in a classroom someday, or
Right.
organization wants to provide a half-hour session for their employees, and we can customize it, work around whoever's schedule, make it work.
Correct. And I think the biggest thing to remember is that you always want to file your FAFSA to cover that gap, and make sure you're taking advantage of all the free money that might be eligible. You might be eligible for the state grant form to make sure you're eligible for that, and the scholarships. And again, as Dan said earlier, you never know what you're going to get from a school until you apply. And so you don't know how much money. A lot of times students will well, I'll never be able to afford that. You don't know until you apply what kind of funds the school has to be able to give you toward your financial aid award package. So always apply wherever you want. Just make sure you're applying to more than one, because you don't have anything to compare to if you only apply to one. So you always want to have that wish list school. That's what I usually say, wish list school. If nothing else mattered, that's where I want to go. The other options are your reality school. I will probably get in there and I can afford it, and your safety net school, which is a school with rolling admission. And that means if you want to go there, they will find you a seat. But always look at it, definitely many, file the FAFSA. Once you get that gap, go ahead and then you figure out how am I going to pay it and can I afford it? And that's really the big
tools that are out there, right? I mean, you got Ed Planner, you have Find My Perfect School, you have Net Price Calculator. Man, you can research 25 schools in a weekend pretty well. I don't want to say it's the same as going there and signing up for an official visit at the school, but you can learn an awful lot with the tools that are out there right now.
Absolutely. And so, like I said, the tools are there for you. Please do not shy away from filing a FAFSA. Robin will help you with that. A lot of families think, oh, I won't get any aid, so I won't apply. But you have to have that form on file, because you don't know what what's going to happen tomorrow. And maybe if I get laid off or whatever, I need that form on file to be able to go back to the school and say, well, I didn't need aid before, but now I do. Unless you have that form on file, they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry for you. So you want to make sure that you're always doing all the forms you can, and following up with each school to see. Even some schools have internal forms, right, Robin, that that they have money. Robin used to be a director of financial aid, so she's well aware of those. And Dan used to work in financial aid.
Just think I don't have to fill the FAFSA because I won't get any free aid. Actually, that's not true. I would fill the FAFSA no matter what, because there are grants or scholarships that are offered by the schools that have nothing to do with need. It just has to do with what the students enrolled in, the type of program. If they fit that endowment scholarship that's offered by that school, and there's no need-based caveat to that, then they got that scholarship. If you didn't fill the FAFSA, they probably won't even be considered.
Right. So between us, between Dan, Linda, me, and Robin, we have about 80 years of experience in student financial funding. So again, before we end, please take our information. And if you have any questions or we can help you further, you definitely want to reach out. And thanks to PACAC again for having us. I think we're done. Thank you, guys. Oh, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much to Dan and Linda and Robin. We actually at Wyoming Seminary just hosted FAFSA online workshop and a completion webinar. So we really appreciate all that you do for all of our students, and you really do great work. But on behalf of PACAC, I want to thank you all for joining us today and hosting this session. For those attendees, there will be a quick 4-question survey for you to complete so we can get your feedback about the session and the platform. And also, if you'd like to sign up for additional sessions or view recordings of this session or any others, you can visit www.pacac.org/virtual. Thanks everyone and have a great night.